I'm Brian Wilson alongside Larry O'Connor.
Everybody in America has a Social Security number. I mean, I got it when I first got a job, I remember, when I was like 13 or 14 years old.
Right.
But my babies had Social Security numbers. When they were born, they're now issuing Social Security numbers, and you got to use it for your taxes. That number stays with you for life, right? But have you ever wondered, what about these illegal immigrants? We keep hearing from Democrats, oh, well, they're working and they're trying to live the American dream and they're paying taxes. Well, how are they doing that if they're here illegally and they don't have tax ID numbers, if they don't have Social Security numbers? Well, Bob Segall is an investigative reporter at WTHR in Indianapolis, and he has come up with an unbelievable story about what the IRS does when they find someone who has obtained illegally and used illegally a Social Security number. Bob, thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
What did you uncover here? What does the IRS do in this case?
Well, most of us would never really dream about just allowing someone else to use our Social Security number. It's really not a good idea because identity theft and all kinds of other things can happen. But the IRS is actually doing that for you. They're letting other people use your Social Security number. If an undocumented worker who's in the United States is paying taxes, they're given an ITIN number, an individual taxpayer identification number assigned specifically to them so that they can pay taxes on the income that they earn in the United States. The issue here is that in order to do that, the IRS is also allowing them to use someone else's Social Security number in order to get employment. It's something that there are multiple federal laws against, but the IRS simply looks the other way. Many undocumented workers, in order to get employment, they obtain a Social Security number. Sometimes that Social Security number belongs to someone else. It could belong to you. And when they pay taxes, millions of times they are putting down their ITIN number, and then they're also including someone else's Social Security number to be able to show the income that they earned, and the IRS actually encourages them to do that. They want to see where the income came from, so the IRS simply looks the other way when an undocumented worker does that, and our investigation showed that millions of people are impacted, and if you're one of the individuals whose Social Security number is being used without your permission, the IRS will not tell you that that is happening. They have an internal policy that specifically tells IRS employees that if they see that happening, and if you are to call in and complain to say what's going on here, those IRS employees are not allowed to tell you that it's actually happening.
Well, what is the justification for that? I mean, do they have any kind of legal underpinning that supports that position? Because it seems to me identity theft is a crime.
It is a crime, but the IRS doesn't refer to it as a crime. We obtained internal IRS policies for whistleblowers who came to WTHR, or the NBC station in Indianapolis. And those internal policies that the IRS has refers to it as borrowing. So someone who was using your Social Security number without your permission, the IRS refers to them as a borrower.
Oh, my God.
And the IRS's position on this is, look, we're not responsible when it comes to policing who's using what in order to get employment. We're just responsible for collecting taxes, and therefore this is not a tax administration issue. Now, the Inspector General at the Treasury Department sees it very differently. For more than 15 years, the Inspector General has been screaming about this, and we have those internal reports which show the Inspector General's been saying, look, you really shouldn't be doing this, and at least if this is happening, you should be telling taxpayers if their Social Security number is being used without their permission. But up to this point, the IRS has not done that.
Look, if you deal with the IRS and you make a math error or put a decimal point in the wrong place, if you do anything at all, you can be called on the carpet. And they have no compunction about coming at you full tooth and fang if you make even an honest mistake or if you have a misunderstanding about what tax policy is. I want given the fact that our tax code is about as tall as 10 phone books put together, it's easy to understand how that might happen. But in a case where they know that a law has been violated, they actively turn their eyes away and say, no, not our problem.
Well, to get to your point, we we put the IRS policy together, and it's actually about 50 phone books put together. And
Wow.
if you go to WTHR.com, you can see it's actually more than 21,000 pages printed out. That's how big the IRS code is. And we actually did show exactly how large that book is. But to your point, that's exactly why IRS whistleblowers came forward, because they see this identity theft happening every day over and over again, and they can see the person who's stealing your Social Security number. Keep in mind, they have filed a tax return
Right.
to be able to pay taxes and also to be able to get credits back from the IRS and to be able to get refunds. And these folks who work at the IRS, they can see who those people are, where they live. They can see all they need to know about these individuals to be able, theoretically, to be able to get law enforcement involved for a case of identity theft, but IRS policy doesn't allow them to take any action. And in fact, some whistleblowers, they were actually reprimanded by their bosses at the IRS when they tried to bring this to their boss's attention. They're literally told, look the other way.
Oh.
Our policy allows for it. After all, these are borrowers. These are not thieves or identity thieves.
No, they
These
are.
are folks that are considered borrowers.
Let's get to that. First of all, they paid money to obtain that Social Security number. So by allowing them to continue to do that, you're encouraging more identity theft because you're creating a market for it. But second, let me ask you this, Bob Segall. Let's say someone stole my Social Security card and they're an illegal immigrant and they're working and earning money on that. If they don't pay their taxes, if they don't actually file a 1040, am I on the hook for that money that was earned? Is the IRS going to come after me and say, hey, you earned money that you didn't report because it's here's your Social Security number?
And that's one of the ways that we also found out about this. So we went out and we talked to victims here in Indiana. They receive a letter from the IRS saying, look, we on your tax return, we see this job that you worked in Fort Wayne, for example, and the income you reported there, but you didn't report income from the factory job that you have in North Carolina, and therefore you owe us more money, and you owe us penalties on that money that you didn't report. And of course, the gentleman in Fort Wayne says, wait a second, I've never lived in North Carolina, I've never worked there. And so then they've got a year-long process to prove to the IRS that it's not them.
Right, you have to prove your innocence. You're guilty until proven innocent with the IRS.
Oh.
And meanwhile, this is all because it was created by the IRS's own internal policy. Unbelievable reporting, Bob. Bob, are there any politicians who are trying to change this? We know no change will come from the administration, but Congress can step in here.
Yeah, Dan Coates, senator from Indiana, he's pretty outraged about this. He sits on the Finance Committee. So right now, behind the scenes in the Finance Committee, they're working on ways to try and figure out what they might be able to do about this. They did grill the IRS commissioner a few weeks ago when he testified before the Finance Committee.
Right.
So they're working right now to set up meetings with the IRS to see if they can come up with some type of compromise. But it is, it's a very politically sensitive situation. It impacts millions of people. So how quickly something will be done, I'd love to say something will happen tomorrow.
Well, if it becomes a presidential election issue, it will, and I hope some of these presidential candidates understand, because, again, this is one of those arguments about illegal immigration that we need to have as Republicans and conservatives on our turf, because no one should be able to stand up and defend this. Great reporting,
Bob, let me just ask you a quick question. Have you been audited?
It was 4 years ago we did a story showing how the IRS was actually, allowing millions of undocumented workers to be getting billions of dollars in tax credits that they weren't legally entitled to. About 27 million people watch those stories online at WTHR.com, and so far, knock on wood, I have not yet been audited, but I have a feeling my day might be coming.
Yeah, well, I will let us know if that happens. All right, our guest is Bob Segall with WTHR in Indianapolis with some just an astonishing story. Thanks for joining us, Bob.
Have a great day, guys.